So we are here in the final weeks of this marvelous exhibition, Amazonia Azul, at America's Society. Aimé, in the long history of this space, what makes this exhibit unique?
So America Society has a very important history since 1967 of being an introducer of Arts of the America in New York and to the broader US audiences. And I think something that is very unique about this exhibition is that it offers the possibility to see a region as a whole, to understand the connections and differences in the very large region that composes the Amazonas. When we were thinking about making this exhibition, we knew we wanted this to be a show with artists from the Amazonas and not about the Amazonas. And we knew also we had a big challenge, which was to show the diversity of the area. In dialogue with the president of America Society, Susan Siegel, somebody who comes from the policy sector, and she offered a very useful advice for the art world when she said, why don't you do like President Lula did when he held the conference of the Amazonia with the 9 presidents of the countries that are located in what is called the Amazona Basin. And we took that model, that diplomatic model, to create a similar curatorial diplomatic corps, if you like, in which we had 4 convenings in which we discussed with these 9 curators to try to present the broadest possible scope about what is cultural in the Amazonas now, culture from the Amazonas, not about the Amazonas.
Usually when people think of the Amazon, they think of Brazil. And one of the amazing things about this exhibition is that you get this view into Peru and Guyana and even French Guyana. What did you learn putting this exhibition together?
Well, we learned so many things. I mean, we learned as a general thing, we learned about the importance to include craft as a cultural expression at the same level as fine arts. We learned about the multiple histories that inform the people that live in the Amazonas, not only indigenous histories, but also histories such as the Maroon people that were brought enslaved into the region and had lived in the Amazonas for centuries and who have a lot of Afro influence in their work. We learned that there are a lot of artists in the Amazonas that live in cities and talk about the urban experience in the Amazonas in cities like Belém.
So this show has 9 curators from 9 different countries. Was that a challenge to pull off?
Yes, it was. Typically, an institution will work with 1 or 2 curators. For us, it was important to include as many voices as possible. We also had a challenge when we were thinking about doing a show about the Amazonia, in that we knew that certain communities from the Amazonas had been more known than others. For example, the Yanomami community and the Shipibo community had specific artists that had made it into the so-called mainstream of the art world, had been in international biennials, group exhibitions, or are represented by international galleries. And we wanted to go beyond that. We wanted to show the Amazonas as an interconnected area, as an area that has also a lot of very important cultural differences that includes very different communities that speak not only different languages, but that respond to different influences.
Tell me about some artists that really stood out to you and why.
So Sara Flores is a very well-renowned artist in Peru. She's actually representing Peru at the next Venice Biennial in May 2026, which is a huge feature for her, but also to the value of indigenous artists. She comes from the Loreto region in the Peruvian Amazonas. She is from the Shipibo community. And the work that you see here, it's a very precise, handmade design, abstract design, that it looks as if it was made by a machine, but it's actually made by hand. This is a very delicate technique that in her community is transmitted from woman to woman throughout the community. They only use natural dyes. These dyes, they come from vegetables and fruits and materials from the region. There's a ritualistic process in the way that they do these designs, and these pieces, ideas of abstraction, they belong to Western culture. The difference between abstraction and representation is not something that these communities necessarily are attached to. And actually, this is a representation, an indirect representation through geometry of the movement of the rivers in the area and how the water flows. So these patterns are also alluding to the way in which water moves throughout the different rivers in the Amazonas.
So they've been doing this for generations.
Yeah, for many generations. And Sara actually has a school in which she teaches other women in her community. She's somebody who is very invested in sharing the success that she has had. She has also helped other communities in the area. And, there's a lot of value in what they do, not in terms of artistic value, in terms of the results piece that we see, but also in terms of the process and the community building that happens from these types of processes.
Has their work been known to the outside world for a long time?
It's been more and more known. She has had individual shows here in New York in big galleries, and she's been included in many group shows. But the representation in the Venice Biennial is certainly going to be a new level of recognition, because it also talks about national recognition, which is important for these communities that have been relegated by the state in many cases. Elías is an artist from Belém in Brazil. He's born and raised there. He's a young artist, and his work is very interesting because it really pushes against the stereotypes that we have about the Amazonas just being a forest. He shows the urban spaces that are included in the Amazonas and kind of contrast between, the stereotypes about how indigenous people live, and also show how indigenous communities, they're also part of cities, not only in Brazil, but worldwide.
Yeah, this is not usually what you see depicted of the Amazon.
Exactly. But it's very much in the Amazonas. This is Belém, a huge city in the middle of the Amazonas. People tend to think that many of the Amazonas artists, they work around craft. He's also challenging those stereotypes. He's a very vital artist that is showing all over the world, and it's a pleasure to have him. So this is Isabel Rodriguez. This piece is called El Árbol de la Vida y la Abundancia, and it's part of a series of works that he did about abundance trees. As you can see, he paints a tree that is full of fruits, but also the fruits are falling, and all the animals of the region of the rainforest are gathering together to share the results of nature. This is not just a representation, but it's also an evocation of the importance of taking care of nature, the importance of taking care of the richness that the forest can offer us. He made this as a symbol of the importance of taking care of communities, the rivers, and the rainforest. Sadly, Adele passed away very recently when we were opening the show. But the important things about many of these artists is that they have kept their legacy and share it with their community and their families. We actually have a piece by his son, Akobe, who is named Wilson Rodriguez. And as you can see, he follows a little bit in a very different graphic style the legacy of his father in talking about abundance. This is a calendar. It's a system of time, but also a system of belief. And in this system, he's including the different fishes that come throughout the different months of the year, the plants that grow at different moments, the plantations that can be harvested, highlighting the importance of taking care of the land, taking care of the goods of the land, and also explaining and leaving a registry of what composes the Amazonas, what composes their communities and their land. They're trying to go against the differentiation between people and nature, to think about it in a more integrated way, and to leave a register of their beliefs, histories, and cosmologies.
So how much more time do people have to come see this great exhibition?
So the show is going to be open until April 18. We are open to the public Wednesday to Saturday, 12 to 6. We hope that everybody can come to see it. The entrance is free to the public. We also have a little catalog that is very affordable that they can take home. And, I hope they can come see it.
Better hurry.
Yeah, better hurry.